What's going on, Kacey?
Hey.
How are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing very well. I'm looking forward to this conversation.
Yeah.
Good stuff. Good stuff. So, bridge builder, just to set the table, the way I defined it is someone who leverages their power, influence, their platform to create opportunities, pathways for those who might not otherwise have them, and definitely want to explore who you are as a human being. You know what I mean? As that plays very much into how we show up in our leadership roles within the community. Definitely want to talk about the work you're doing within your industry, as well as, how would I say, the challenges that may arise, as well as the opportunities, the hope. Because I very much want to speak about what is the hope that exists if we all show up and create that space. So I'm looking forward to it. So we'll start at the beginning.
Okay.
Kacey, where you from? How did you grow up? Tell me all the things.
All right. I am from Dallas, Texas, originally, or right outside of. So I'm 45. So I spent my first 9 or 10 years in Texas. I have two sisters. I've got an older sister and a younger sister, so I'm in the middle. My whole family is from Texas, has been from Texas, and when I was about 10, we moved to Minneapolis and stayed there for a couple of years, and we moved to New Jersey, went back to Minneapolis, went to school in Chicago, so I'm kind of fast forwarding, but the point is I've lived, and then moved to Charlotte, so I've lived a lot of different places.
Sure. What's the deal with the moving? Is military family or just life changes?
No, my dad's job. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So not in military, but business. Yeah.
Gotcha.
So, and I think leaving Texas when we did was probably really good for me. Well, Texas is challenging in some ways, but
How so?
well, just what's happening politically in Texas right now it's not just right now, but it's just heightened, I think, right now. So, that right now I would not move back to Texas right now, let me put it that way. But I do think just that having the experiences of moving, having to make new friends, having to meet new people, that has probably been a really good thing, even though at the time, of course, as a little kid, you don't want to move and leave your friends and stuff. So, and they made fun. I remember getting to Minneapolis and everybody imitated I'm Kacey from Dallas, Texas. They imitated my accent and everything. So.
No, yes. So do you, I'm sure you may have a different perspective rather than when you were in it. So when you were younger and you were doing all of that moving, was there a hate for again, we're moving, or how did you internalize that?
I don't think so. I think I got used to it pretty fast, actually, and I kind of like different things about all the places that I live. So, no, I wouldn't say I hated it. No.
It just was.
It just kind of was.
Gotcha.
I don't know.
No, I hear that. I'm interested, and again, for me, exposure is a big thing.
Yeah.
And very much shapes who we are, how we show up. So even with you moving around the States in the way you did, when did you connect that's actually valuable experiences that you were able to have at such a young age? I'm assuming that you see it as valuable.
Yeah. No, I do.
Okay.
I do, and I will say too that even though, and now I can only see this in retrospect, but even though we moved around a lot, it was almost like we moved to very similar environments within those cities, right? So I lived in a suburb right out of Dallas, and a suburb right outside of Minneapolis, and a suburb of New York, and all very very white suburbs, relatively wealthy suburbs. We moved and it changed, but it wasn't until I went to school in Chicago that I was in a very different, it felt like a really different environment.
Gotcha. So that's interesting.
Yeah. I would, in thinking about this conversation, and I'm not the best at talking about myself, so feel free to just if I give you a short answer, pull it out, that's fine. But I've been thinking about some of the stuff that I don't, normally think that much about. And I counted in my K through 12 years, how many people of color did I go to school with? I can literally think of 4 people.
Oh, wow.
And I think that's probably everybody. Maybe it's 5 and I'm not thinking of somebody, but it's very, very few people, to give you an idea of how how homogeneous we're talking about.
No, that is...
Isn't that crazy?
That is interesting. I'm automatically thinking about, and again, very much in tune with, I guess, what I believe we can learn from one another, just understanding how our experience shapes, again, who we become.
Yeah.
And I'm very much interested in how even that dynamic has led you to the work you do, which I would say is very much focused outside of those bubbles.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's very much where my head is churning. So you're the middle child. I'm the next to the youngest. I have 2 siblings who are older than me and one who's younger.
Okay.
And I guess we can see if there are similarities in experience. How would you describe growing up as a middle child?
I'm very close. So it's 2 years apart, then 4 years apart, then 2 years apart. Yeah. My younger sister actually lives in Charlotte now, and we're very close. I would say the thing about being a middle child is you never have time with your parents alone, right? Like my youngest sister, when I went off to college, had a couple years. My oldest sister had some years before I was born, and I was just sort of like, oh, I don't know if that had negatively impacted me or positive. You know, middle child syndrome or whatever people talk about is kind of a negative thing, I think.
Honestly, I'm not sure what that is.
Yeah.
Explain it to me.
I'm not 100% sure either. I think it's like maybe like needs attention or I don't know.
Interesting.
But I don't know. I used to read the stuff about like birth order and stuff, and I kind of decided it was BS, so I stopped reading it.
Gotcha.
So I don't know much about it. But how about you? What do you think?
That's interesting. I mean, even just what
now, are they brothers or sisters?
So the oldest is a sister, then I have an older brother after her, and then a younger brother.
Okay.
And we, again, just throwing out the idea of being forgotten or needing attention. Yeah. I'm not sure if I thought about it that way at all, but I will say that I've always been very, I'll say, independent.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And again, you might be able to couple that as like, yeah, no one was paying attention, so you did what you had to do.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, always very independent, entrepreneurial, as well as just very much growing up very much to myself. You know what I mean? So it could be some truth in that. I don't know.
I mean, who knows?
I didn't see it as a bad thing.
I didn't see it as a bad thing.
It just, again,
I think that I wouldn't have wanted to be an only child. I don't think. I like having, siblings. And my mom especially was like, great mom, but like, your job is you guys entertain each other and yourselves mostly, which I think ultimately probably is a good thing because it forces you to be resourceful. But like, she wasn't setting up a bunch of activities for us, so either way, I think I would have been independent. No, I mean, she made us go do stuff. We had to walk.
Gotcha. No, I hear that. No, that's cool. So, what of all of, let's say, high school, where were you in high school?
Minneapolis. Or Edina, too. So the suburb that I was in was called Edina, but it was real close to Minneapolis.
Got you. So for those formative years, how would you describe that experience there?
It was, like, I don't know, not too exciting. I don't know how exciting it is.
Did you go to prom?
I didn't go to prom. I was very focused on school. I was pretty focused on school, and probably around like 11th grade started focusing. I mean, I had friends, but 11th grade I probably started focusing less on school. I mean, I still got good grades, but I was like much more focused on my friends and like going out and doing stuff and hanging out. So, but mostly I was trying to get into college. Like that was the expectation that my parents, that was the expectation of myself at that point, right? So like I was trying to get into a good school and not kind of screw it up too bad. And so I was really focused on academics really. And pretty involved in school. So it was not, I wouldn't call it like super exciting. I was pretty focused on academics, hanging out with my friends, going to concerts, and probably just like what I guess I thought of at least as pretty typical. And yeah, I was mostly just trying to get into college, and and my parents definitely expected that I go to college, and I expected that I was going to go to college, and my older sister had gone to college and whatever, so that was the plan.
Where did you end up going to college?
University of Chicago.
So studying what?
Studied economics and public policy. So, I think was probably what I planned to study. But I love Chicago. I did love Chicago. Like I didn't, you know how some people, when they're planning to go to college, it's like, what city do you want to go to? And you're basing it on that. And for me, I mean, I definitely wanted to leave home. So that was one thing. But after that, it was more about like the school. So I went to Chicago. Have you ever been to the University of Chicago?
I haven't.
Or you know where it is? So it's on the south side of Chicago, probably like 4 or 5 miles from downtown, pretty close.
Okay.
But I mean, just like complete opposite of where I ever grew up. This is where Obama lived at one point. But anyway, like super diverse environment, super diverse neighborhood. Like, I just like immediately loved it. I was like, and immediately spent a lot of time downtown, like, you know, just like actually going to the different areas of the city and I remember thinking like, I'm sure there are a lot of cool places in other cities I grew up in that I just never saw or never went to. I mean, Chicago's different, but it was awesome.
No, that's interesting. So again, as you describe it, in all of these cities that you lived in your youth, but the bubbles in which you existed in very much being the same, regardless of what city it was in. What moved you to want to go and exist in this space within your college years?
I don't think it was purposeful. That's what I mean. Like, so I went there because it was a good school and it was like had good academics for what I wanted to study. But once I got there, I was like, oh, awesome. Like this worked out well because I just, like all the, not even just like the environment, but all the cultural things that were available in the city and just a city like that, which is I guess the biggest city that I had ever lived in. Like that was just, and I guess I lived close to New York, but I was too young to like go in by myself and figure stuff out. So I would love to live in New York City too. But that was, I just really appreciated it and wanted to kind of explore all the different avenues of it. So
political science and
public policy
and economics.
Which has nothing to do with what I do now.
So smart. And he said it's not connected to what you do now. So where did your interests that you now again pour your life into, where did that happen? When did that journey begin to now in your leadership with Work to Hire?
So after I graduated college, I went to work at Accenture, management consulting, and then I met my husband there, and then we moved to Charlotte. I worked at Bank of America and at another consulting company, and then at Red Ventures. So all through that time, which was about, 12 or 15 years of working in business, not working in the kind of social impact space, not working in the nonprofit space, not working in the economic or public policy space. But which by the way is what a lot of people who majored in what I majored in did. Like, I don't think people were going to get PhDs. Of the rare few were going to go get PhDs in economics, right? Most of us were going to go into business. But anyway, that whole time, I just, like, there was something in me that was like, this is not what I'm going to do long term, right? I just like, I'm going to get enough experience under my belt and maybe I'll make a little money, whatever. Mm-hmm. And I would do, like, all the internships I did during college were at like nonprofits, right? It was, but I never made that leap. Anyway, so finally, and I can talk about how I got there, but once I did move into the nonprofit space, I remember telling my dad, and he was like, finally. He was like, I knew you should have been doing. I'm like, why didn't you tell me a long time ago? He's like, well, you had to figure out your own journey. You had to like.
Why did he think?
He's like, I just knew this is what you should be doing, and that you were doing fine in all these other spaces. But it's like, I mean, you know how when you get into a space and you thrive, and you're like, oh, I like. What do they call it? When you have flow, basically, like when you're just like, that's how it felt different. It's like, oh, I was doing okay over here. But like really in retrospect, I was probably like banging my head against a brick wall when I could have been, I had headwinds when now I feel like I have tailwinds.
Gotcha.
And I didn't know until I did it. And I finally like.
Why do you think that is? I'm trying to connect the dots.
Yeah.
Always interested in, again, where we find ourselves in our careers and what along our journey kind of built us to be doing that work. Have you been able to connect that dynamic of your origin story and why this is where you find yourself?
Well, I'm not good at like self-reflection, but I did ask my dad that. Like, I'm like, why did you, how did you know? Right? He's like, I've watched you exist as a human being and seen that You are very just like drawn to people who you feel have been marginalized. I don't think he said it that way, but the point is just like that was to me the obvious thing that you were gonna go do, and I think that's true. And I wouldn't have put it as marginalized either, but just thinking like, hey, there are so many human rights atrocities or just like the way that we treat people without dignity, kind of on a big and a small scale, that like always draw me in to think, how can I do something? And I tried to do that in small, like I try to volunteer, I try to, you know, go be on this board, do this thing. And it just like never felt like enough. You know what I mean? I was kind of like, I can dabble in this, I can hobby at this. But I just felt like I have a responsibility, because I think everybody has a responsibility to drive, to make sure people have like opportunities and dignity and all of that. But I just felt like this is what I wanted to spend all my time on, or the vast majority of my time on. And so I finally just got to that place where I was like, I gotta just do it because this doesn't feel good not to do it. I wish I had a better answer, but
no, that's dope. And again, who knows? Maybe in 5-10 years, it actually like, you know what? I can connect those dots now.
yeah.
So that's cool, and I've really been looking forward to having this conversation with you. And I want to give you the opportunity just to share very specifically the vision for Road to Hire and specifically what you all are doing. But for me, I was excited because of my journey within the tech industry, you know what I mean? Web designer, developer, and very much we talk about, in my lifetime, I've seen 4 Black in my career, I've seen, you know,
exactly.
You can count on your hands. Yeah. And again, you know, we're not becoming less of a tech society. If anything, we're coming deeper. Absolutely. So just thinking about disparities when you're thinking about access and opportunity, just again, looking forward to this conversation with you just to dive into that. But if you could just, I guess, paint a clear picture, like what is Road to Hire? What are you all doing? What does success look like for Road to Hire?
So what we really care about is helping young adults, Black and Hispanic young adults, get into higher earning careers. And tech is one like clear higher earning career path that's also in heavy demand. So we've really focused heavily on that. It's not the only thing we do, but that's probably the main thing people know us for and that we focus on. The why is, or why I really care about this is, I think having a job where you can support yourself, support your family, it can help solve some other problems, right? So like I care about healthcare disparities, I care about environmental issues, I care about lack of affordable housing, I care about food insecurity. All of those things get better when, I don't know about the climate thing, but all those other things, I think get somewhat better. Not that it's a cure-all, but like when people have a stable job, and not just like I have to be at this job, but I actually have skills where I can go to a different job and I can demand more income, and I, you know, just like anybody, I can kind of control my own employment destiny. And so it feels like as much as one can kind of start to address root cause things, like this is not the root cause, but like as deep as one can get. And so, or as deep as I felt like we could, that's why I think that this space is really interesting in terms of workforce development. And just, I mean, college lack of affordability is ridiculous, right? And so just making sure people who can't afford college, that doesn't mean like, oh, that's it. Like you're not going to have access to a career where you can, you know, make a lot of money and make a good living. So, and I also think there's something around like there's nothing wrong with people wanting to make a lot of money or make a good living. And I feel like sometimes we say, okay, well, you can make, like, this is enough, right? Or like this job is not going to get you, you know, hundreds of thousands of dollars, but it's enough to be like family sustaining, which is great. There's nothing wrong with that. But also there's nothing wrong with like anybody wanting to be in jobs that where they can actually make a ton of money. So,
so if again, what you shared, if I boiled it up in my own words, is less about, at the heart of it, is less about the tech industry it's more about creating pathways for Black and brown individuals to find a way towards not just a sustainable life, but a life that thrives and they can prosper. I would say the word that came to my mind was like have agency.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah. I'm gonna use that now.
That's dope. That's dope. You can have it.
No, that's right. And so like we also have all these programs, tech apprenticeship, but we've got a bunch of programs in high schools too. And of course, not all those kids want to go into be software developers or whatever. That's fine, but what do you want to do? And like, what's the version of that where you can actually be, financially prosperous or make a living? And do you know, like, just make sure you know that that's a thing for you, that like you actually can do that. And
Sure. No, that's great. And I feel like we may have talked about this before, but with my creative agency that I co-own, Hugh House, that is very much a part of our social enterprise models. Like, how do we not just, again, be a successful full service agency, but also how do we create pathways where creatives can realize what they actually enjoy to do and how they can actually have a life doing what they enjoy, rather than, let me work full time at a job I hate. And then on the side, I'll, take photos or whatever. Like, no, there's possibilities. And I think, again, exposure is like super key. It's like most of the time we just don't know it exists. So, no, that's super cool. And I think this is a great time to welcome another guest to this conversation, Rashaan. So I'm gonna welcome her and she's gonna join this conversation. All right, cool. Rashaan, what's going on?
Life, man.
Life.
Making a difference.
Absolutely.
Hanging out with you guys.
Hey. Well, no, I definitely wanted to invite you into this conversation. Mainly because I understand what you do with City Startup Labs and your focus mainly on Black individuals being present in the tech industry. And again, I may be butchering. I want you to explain more specifically what's your heartbeat, what drives you, what drives the organization. But I definitely thought this was the bridge that needed to be created. Connection is like, and as well as just to expand the conversation, because I think to the exposure is like, again, you don't know the things and you don't know the people, and just how we can, open each other's perspective to the realities that, I don't know your journey. I can't tell you. You'll have to help me understand, and likewise in every other direction. So real quick, what is it that you do?
What is it that I do? I'm a connector. So W.E.B. Du Bois is a web. So I try to follow suit in making sure that we are all connected in some way. Professionally, I give access and try to give younger career folks that want to be successful and have opportunities that only money can buy, career paths that include technology, but also I work with creatives, and whatever you want to do, I'm going to try to find the best outlet where you're going to be successful.
Dope. And again, I already mentioned City Startup Labs. Shout out to Rock, but also BlkTech Interactive.
BlkTech Interactive was acquired by City Startup Labs last March 2021. And since then, we've been hitting the ground running, trying to create programs that were intentional in amplifying the need for more Black tech talent. And doing that through Artistic Afrofuturism Fest, which is a 3-day celebration of all things of the culture. We do coding and switching, which is a play on code switching, where you feel comfortable in your own skin and in corporate environments where you would more than likely quit because you just don't know how to navigate the space. And also we do a reading challenge, like whatever the community seems like they need, we'll try to pop up with some programs. So we've been doing that for a little over a year, and the next phase is a startup studio, which is really exciting, that we're going to try to work with corporate to do some supply chain, intentional supply chain development for tech companies that are Black owned.
Cool.
Dope.
That you didn't call it this belonging thing in the corporate space, I think is so real. Like, it's just like, we see so many students who are like, okay, I got the skills, but if you can't get in that space and feel like I can screw up, I can ask questions, I can make mistakes,
Right.
like it's not gonna work.
And then you bring your own biases when you come in, so you don't realize that what you see as my personality, like I try to be open in the morning, like at 10 o'clock, don't talk to me before 10. So just being open with, your idiosyncrasies and being comfortable and confident in your own space. Like you said, you're 45, I'm 47. So at this point, I'm like, dude, I won't be there until 10:15.
Yeah.
Just so, and you don't have the confidence to do that when you're in your 20s.
Yeah.
Oh, that's dope. And again, my perspective is in a lot of ways through experience, working in the industry. But beyond that, I don't know too much of the statistics when it comes to. So what are some of the statistics?
One of the things that I've learned recently is how few Black and Hispanic students are graduating with computer science degrees in North Carolina. Does anybody want to guess how many it is?
How many total or the percentage?
Total. Like how many are, and I think 2020 is the latest year they published data.
Out of all of the universities?
Yeah, or all the public universities, I guess.
I'm going 1,200.
My guess
No, you can guess.
is, and this is nationwide.
No, North Carolina.
North Carolina, okay, gotcha. So I would say 50.
50? Mm-hmm. It's like a little bit over 200. I can't remember the exact. I was in the 200s. But it, like every company you talk to is like, how do I hire more Black software engineers? How do I hire more people of color? Like, and there is just the dearth of, like, one company could probably hire that many. One big company in Charlotte or Raleigh could probably hire that many engineers in a year, right? And UNCC is actually the largest school. Like UNCC, in terms of the number of Black graduates and Hispanic graduates, is the largest. But which is crazy because it's like gotten so much bigger over the last few years. But anyway, that's ridiculous, right? And think like there's more people coming out of.
How many are there total graduating in North Carolina?
Oh gosh, I think it's like 22,000. I could get it.
Oh, wow.
Computer science is a very small major,
Right.
just
Gotcha.
in general. I could be wrong about that bigger number, but it's tens of thousands.
So the reality is we recruit different. So I want to be the athlete. I want to be the performer. So I need someone to really like trick out a Tesla so that when the kids see it, right, when the kids see it, they know that, oh, okay, if I get this computer science degree, I'm gonna have a tricked out Tesla.
Yeah.
But the plain look is not appealing to our generation of kids. So it's hard for me to sell you on, you can make six figures, and they don't even understand what that looks like. So even when I'm at middle schools doing activities that say, what would you do with $1 million? So that you can imagine using that, like what is $1 million? Can I buy chicken nuggets with it? And like explaining that, yes, but not that many. And then, okay. So don't buy all chicken nuggets. And at the Kids Fest, we actually did that. We asked everybody that walked by what they would do with $1 million. So we manifested like millions and millions of dollars that day and brought out the imaginations of thousands of kids, and they, bought houses and college tuitions and helped their parents. So just knowing how to spend money is important too.
Yeah.
And there's not taught in school.
Yeah.
It's interesting. You're making me think about, so before I came here to Charlotte to study multimedia web design, in high school, we did our paper, and again, this is 2000. We did our papers on typewriters. We didn't have a computer. We didn't have internet in our home. Again, the internet existed, computers obviously existed, but they existed in a place I didn't frequent. It's called the library. Right. At school, And again, I can't take strategic credit for the decision to come here and study that, but just how that changed my life from an exposure understanding what was possible. And honestly, even with my own career in the entertainment lane of producing and as a recording artist, I feel like that had a lot to do with it. Why? Because I could build my own website.
Yeah.
Because I knew how to leverage the internet to, again, expose people to my art. So I feel like just
to an end.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I think just exposure, which, and I had made this comment within another conversation, just talking about, we're talking about the bias in the machine. Are you familiar with this? Mm-hmm. So it's the idea that as human beings, we all have bias. Mm-hmm. And this is a shocking way my wife says it, and you know my wife, so this is maybe a couple years ago. She's like, the internet's racist. I was like, what you mean the internet's racist? You know what I mean? It's a machine. But she's like, no, if you think about it, we all have our bias, you know what I mean? And when it comes to how we show up, how we do our work, those things don't just go by. They come along.
Somebody designed it. Yeah.
Absolutely. Are you familiar with Dr. Joy that has done the research on face identifying?
I've seen the research.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Gotcha. So it's the same thing. It's like, we may not intentionally be doing this, but if you never thought about someone of a different shade, how can you even begin to develop for them? So the idea that the internet is a great equalizer, I believe that's a great hope. But if we don't pay attention to the fact of what we bring to the table as we develop this space, I feel like we're only going to create another space metaverse or what have you that carries the baggage we care in the human, in the earthly or whatever you want to call it, real world. So I just thought it was very interesting. And for me, I can see how that exposure change and open me up to opportunities that would not exist with people who grew up just like me, same neighborhood, had the same access. Right. But now that I know about this, I know how to leverage it, and the opportunities for me become so much more than it might for someone over here. So
if you can see it, you can be it.
Absolutely.
We try to use that a lot with the kids. You're like, if you don't know it exists, you won't even try to do it. Absolutely. Like, we know stars, you can get on the internet, but how do I become a YouTube star? What are you doing to become a YouTube star? Like, I start testing them, like, what do you want to be when you grow up? Now I ask, what kind of impact do you want to make when you grow up? Instead of forcing careers on people.
Sure.
Yeah, that's kind of it's kind of an outdated question because you're going to have multiple careers probably in your lifetime, but yeah, I think.
And I'm an only child. I just wanted y'all.
Oh, okay. Well, do you wish you had brothers?
I'm sorry.
I know.
It's like, do I? I don't know. You don't know it. You don't know it. You should see it. Yeah. My cousins had siblings, and they fought a lot, so I don't have that dynamic. But days when you're like, I need to call somebody and say your mama crazy.
yeah.
That doesn't happen because I don't have any siblings.
No.
But on the exposure piece, though, one of the things we had a bunch of our college freshmen this summer, rising sophomores, I guess, this summer do was go spend time literally at Truist headquarters, at Redventure's headquarters, at these other companies, and they kind of put on a show not a show, but like they gave the students a tour and just like had programming for them and were like super welcoming, and like the students after they left, some were just like, I want to work at Truist, I want to work at Redventure. And like you spent a few hours there. You don't know anything about, but that doesn't matter. Like, it's sort of like when they want to go to a specific college and just because that's the one they saw one time, right? And so it just makes you realize how much like having multiple versions of those experiences are important so that you know what all the options were. So I want to like triple down on that effort and just figure out how we do more of that.
That is big. That is big. And I'm just thinking about the dynamics when we talk about the disparities that exist when we talk about the idea of pulling yourself up by your bootstraps and things of that nature. It's like, just to, I guess, kind of tied to what you just said, it's the idea in the bootstrap example. This is the idea of how do you tell that to someone who doesn't even know what bootstraps are? You know what I mean? Someone who doesn't have boots. It's like, it's all of those things. And when you talk about exposure to the opportunities that exist, this is my way of looking at my two daughters who are now 9 and 10. And it's, hey, if anything, my job as a parent is to expose you to as much as possible, you know what I mean? And very much guide them based on what I know, but at the same time, it's like, this stuff I don't know.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But expose you so you at least have the opportunity to choose what is best for you. And I think, well, I know within my experience within the Black community is like, we don't even know what half, if not quarter, if not 10% of the options even are. So it's like, when you talk about, why you ain't doing nothing with your life, it's like, I ain't know no options. I didn't do anything.
Did what you did.
Exactly. So it's like, is at that deep level, again, beyond tech, beyond your career, is just from an exposure and knowing that this exists.
Well, and believing, I think, too, that it's, and this maybe just comes back to my own experience, so I don't know if this is universally true, but one of the things, too, that I remember growing up, now you're going to make me think about all this stuff. No, but my parents used to say to me, and I think I started saying it, too, literally, is like, if I want to do something, how hard could it be? Like, basically, like, just go do it. Like, I never thought there was anything that I didn't have access, any opportunity I didn't have access to, basically. Like, they'll figure it out. We'll help you figure it out if that's what you want to do, whatever. And so, even if I couldn't see it, right? So there's like, can you see it? And then there's also, or even if you can't see it, do you think it's for you? Or do you think it's a thing that you can go do? And so it just feels like there's that kind of, that hope or confidence. Confidence is the other thing that we see so much in this, that you just like, when you start to see that go up, you're like, that's 80% of the battle, is what I always think with the like young adults who we're working with. It's like, when you see that turn start to take place, you're like, that person is going to figure it out because they now believe that they are going to figure it out, basically.
So I have a question going even deeper there. It is, how do you, and I want to know specifically with Road to Hire, how do you, or how would you respond to a student who hasn't been exposed, doesn't know it's possible, and even to take that a step further, has been told that they can't do it and it's not possible? And this is, again, a Black or brown student, wide-eyed, like hoping.
Yeah.
How do you, and very specific, how do you as a white woman, how do you encourage them and help them understand that maybe it's not that, or maybe there are challenges, but there's something you can do to help them overcome those challenges? Yeah.
So a couple of things come to mind. Is one is we build a lot of, like, we spend time to build relationships, right? Meaning you just like, why would anybody of any race or anything believe anything I say until we have a relationship, right? So we have a team of a lot of, and we have a very diverse team. So that is really important to us too. So it's obviously, it's not just me talking to students, but regardless, and the message is the same of, we're going to develop a relationship, and then we just like, we don't stop believing in you. Essentially, we continue to give people chances and say like, okay, no, you screwed that up. Try it again. Our apprenticeship graduates complain so much at the end of it's a 6-month apprenticeship, full time. Like, they're there with us 9 to 5 every 5 days a week. They have to give this big presentation at the end, and they always kill it. And the people who watch it, like, they made us do this 14 times during these 6 months, and we hated every minute of it, but now we understand why. And so, no, I won't say not everybody gets there, right? But like, what we're trying to do is like spend time, and with our college students, we're spending 4, 5, 6 years over time, right? Because we meet them in high school, through college, and into the job piece. So it's just like developing relationships over time, so they like actually see you do what you said you were going to do. Sure. And I'm going to take you to college. Oh, they actually did it. Okay, well, I'm going to, now the next thing. Oh, they actually did that. Okay, maybe I trust them to,
right.
When they say the next thing. Important. I think that's it. That's our hypothesis anyway.
No, I agree. Relationship is super important, and definitely, and again, at the core of what I'm doing, Bridge Builder, consulting wise, is that relationship. That's why we're having the conversation. It's like, I don't believe we can change anything without acknowledging the humanity in one another. And to me, that takes time, that takes trust, that takes honesty and transparency. And I think I already said time, but that happens over a span of time. It's not just trust me. And that happens, especially taking into consideration the context of the history of our country, the history of our lives, our journey and challenges and things of that nature. But no, I love that. That's good. What you thinking?
Man, I'm just listening. I'm just here for the ride.
It's funny. Stop it. So take our conversation to, I always want to understand, and again, I speak from my vantage point as a Black man who had a career in the tech industry, but I would love to know from both of you, what would you say has been a challenge or a wall that you have hit or had to overcome being you? Again, a woman in the tech industry, a Black woman trying to create space within the tech industry. What is a wall or a challenge that comes to mind that you had to overcome?
You want to go first?
Just getting, so I graduated from Georgia State with a tech degree, but at the time, you're like, computer information systems, that was trash like the day after. It was because of how technology changed so much. So applying for jobs in Atlanta for a tech degree was like, yeah, that was cute. Can you be my receptionist? And at the time, I needed money. So yes, taking a job. So my first barrier was title and opportunity, even in Atlanta. Where you're like, oh, that's the Mecca. They're trying to be progressive and up and coming. It's really just like any other city where you have to know somebody to know somebody.
Gotcha.
So that's how I ended up in economic development, first in Atlanta and then here. Being in these spaces is the barriers that I've carried is why I'm so passionate about being around people like you and connecting, because I've been there. I've been denied. I've never gotten a job based on an application. So that would be like one of the major barriers.
Why you say that?
I've never sent in a resume, gotten an interview, and they're like, all right, you're hired on Tuesday. I've always had to prove myself first, and then I hired.
Gotcha.
Like through network? You mean like you?
So the first job was a temp. Here, somebody knew somebody. They was like, oh, she'd be great.
Yeah.
Or, all right, we'll try you out, and then we'll see how it works.
Yeah.
So literally.
Yeah.
Gotcha. So it sounds like the challenge is just, again, network.
Social capital.
For sure. It also sounds like, again, there's the dynamic of life. It's like, no, you now have a family, you know what I mean? And based on the pace of technology, there's a lot of learning that has to go for you to keep pace within the industry, and taking into consideration that there may be people who want to be in this industry where that has to be different, or you have to be able to work your, not just life, but I feel like even your job being, what's the best way to say this? I feel like somebody gave me an example. It's like, taking into consideration, yes, we value you, thus we're gonna work your job around the fact that you have a life, you have a family, rather than, nope, if you can't do this, only these type of people will qualify.
Or the opportunity to learn to do other things. So you're so good at this part. Can you just do this?
Okay.
You're like, but there's some other you see it and they're like, yeah, but I really need you to do this.
Yeah.
Sure.
And we'll hire somebody else to do that other part that you want to dabble in and see if you could, increase your web design skills or your communication skills, whatever your skills you want. You're put into a box that you really have to fight to get out of. And it's clear. It's a clear box that you can see other opportunities. You're like, I just want to try.
So how about specifically with your work with BlkTech? What is to create that space for others to not only have exposure, but to excel and build businesses, and as I read it, and also create job opportunities within the community they're from? Have there been any resistance or walls to you?
The resistance is originally the three women that founded BlkTech Interactive in 2016 was after a shooting, Keith Lamont Scott in Charlotte, and they were intentional about creating a space for Black tech geniuses so that they had a space where they could go and network and do job, career advancement, and education. They worked a lot with career-oriented startups that were doing like education, like coding and boot camps. And then, as Charlotte is, if you're not popping, you're not popping. So they didn't get funding. So they didn't get funding to continue. And it was like too much of a struggle to try to force the peg into something that we know as a country, that you have to have tech skills and you have to be able to sustain. It's an economic thing. It's not about black or white. It's about money. It's about green. And I think Hugh McCall would probably agree. And so they were like, yeah, it's not worth it. We're not going to keep fighting this fight. So the original barrier is relaunching something that had been created out of a passion because it was still a need.
Gotcha. Capital barrier.
Capital, definitely. Capital barrier.
And I feel like that's something that's been more widely publicized lately, just when it comes to startup capital for minority-owned startups. And you McCall, because I think we talked about that in our conversation. Interesting. Cool. How about you?
Will you repeat the question?
So,
the original question?
Yeah.
Because I want to make sure I understood. I thought I understood it, and then your answer made me think I didn't understand.
For sure. No, she went to the personal as
Okay.
well as we circle back around. So for Road to Hire, what would you say as you're trying to create opportunities and pathways for these students?
Oh, got it. Okay.
What would you say has been a challenge or a barrier in you being successful at this work?
Okay. So I don't really think in terms of barriers. I have a hard time with that. But in terms of a challenge, or just what I think of as the long pole, is there's plenty of people who want to do this. There's plenty of young adults, right? There's not a lack of black and brown young adults who want to do this work or improve their economic futures. Although exposure is important. I would say it's the jobs, right? So there's a lot of companies that are committed to this and want to do this, but when the rubber meets the road and saying like, hey, how do you actually, not all companies are good. Companies are really good at hiring from college, from the colleges that they're good at hiring from. This requires a shift for us as a community, country really, but as a community in Charlotte to say, hey, we're actually going to do something really different than what we've been doing before. We're going to hire people out of maybe boot camps. We're going to hire from different colleges or different majors or from different clubs at the colleges that we hire from, and just we're trying to move a whole ship, right? Turn a whole ship to do that in our community. And so I think the will is there. I do see that the will is there in most, at least who we're working with. It just takes like continued communication and over practice doing it, and it's slowly changing. But that's the piece. Is just like the demand is there. It's from the young adult side, I think. But
So it's like the demand is there. They need people to do said things.
Yeah.
But I'll use the word patience.
Yeah.
Patience that it requires to shift how they navigate.
Patience and know-how, and really understanding though what the gaps are.
Gotcha. Okay.
And how can you create a culture and an onboarding process and whatever that is going to make sure that people have the opportunity to be their full selves, be successful, show off their talents. And then the other piece is though that we I don't know if you all saw the college and career readiness end of grade scores that just came out recently, but I mean, you can kind of imagine probably what they are. Not good. I mean, really appalling.
They tricked out Tesla.
But I mean, students are not coming out of high school. A lot of students are not coming out of high school prepared for college level courses, right? So that's a challenge. I don't think that means they can't be a software engineer at all. Or they can't be a nurse, or they can't, whatever it is, the thing that they want to be. But what we're used to, the path that we're used to is going to have some bumps in the road, and we're trying to figure out how do we.
And it takes longer. It's not that they can't. It's okay. We have to remediate you first so that you're here, the rest of us, and then we can proceed.
Yeah.
And companies haven't been able to wait.
Yeah.
So, or be intentional about knowing that you have to start early.
Yeah.
Like, you can't wait. And also, I'm a big proponent about starting with the moms, because everybody's house has a mom in it. So if you build up a mom, you change a community. You can change a lot of things, because as a mom, we give to everybody. We'll have Wi-Fi when nobody else does, and make sure that all the kids has access to doing what they need to do.
Well, I think the good news is though that you talked about hope in the beginning, I guess, and
No, absolutely. We're there. It's like, okay, so imagine if these organizations, these corporations understood the heart of the work that you're trying to do, the heart of the work you're trying to do, paint the picture of what does that opportunity and possibility look like if they understood what I'll call, again, the bridge building work that you two are endeavoring on.
Well, and I think I want to make it, I think there are people within every organization that do understand, right? Mm-hmm. And there are things that we as Road to Hire don't understand too. So I don't think of it as like we're waiting for them to figure it out thing. Sure. It's definitely more of a like, how do we all get on the same page thing? And I have a lot of hope about it, because I am part of communities, and I'm sure you talked about Charlotte being kind of small, or, but like, I feel like there are a lot of different groups of companies, of community activists, of government, of different nonprofit organizations, like, who really care about solving this problem. And I've never seen anything like it in any other place, or in Charlotte, like before the last, let's say 5 years. So I think there's a lot of energy around it, which doesn't mean there's that we're getting to the right place, but that's the first sign, I think, that something good can really happen, is that it just feels like you're starting this little snowball of momentum. And so the question is like, okay, how do we capitalize on this and then actually move it forward in a big way? And the thing
let me ask you this way. In 10 years, say this snowball, say there's a deeper understanding of the wide implications positively that can happen within our community. What does that look like for you, and how would you communicate to get them on board in advocating for the same thing, those who may not understand? What does that opportunity look like?
I think, I think one place we would really see it is in our school system, meaning right now at our Title I high schools in Charlotte, which are almost 100% students of color, like 95, 99% students of color, like, people are opting out of those schools, right? In a lot of cases, and saying, I want those schools to be oversubscribed, right? I want those schools to have all the computer, I can, instead of taking a foreign language, computer science can be my foreign language. I'm making that up. But I want to see people wanting so badly to go to people fighting to get into those schools, because kids are able to go to college and get scholarships or go in directly into career because they have such good training at school. I think that would be the sign that the snowball is really growing. More than anything else.
You bring a picture to my mind that I thought about earlier. It's like, if I had to put in my words, you want to build Wakandas within the community that exists, that are, I'm drawing that picture because of the technology advancement of Wakanda. No, there's value here. It exists here. You don't have to go somewhere else.
Exactly. This is just
outside of your community.
Yeah,
absolutely.
That's a better way to say it.
No, that's dope. How about you, Rashaan?
The full breadth of everything, understanding why technology is important, but how it integrates so much with everyday life. Still advancing creative arts and music, and just being a full, like you said, Wakanda really is our best example of it. But they didn't have the arts part of it, and so I just came back.
You see the style in Wakanda?
I just came back from Ghana, and with all that, the resilience of the African American, we are still like a unique
Sure.
creation.
Sure.
Because nobody else can say that they had this journey the way it is. And how we, despite whatever happens, we still go at it and we still try to work together and create spaces that are welcoming for everyone. Like, we'll go to a Greek fest, we'll go to Latina fest, come on to the Afrofuturism fest. It's like, we're open. So not having Title I schools would be like ideal. Everything is not level, but we're good. We're all together in spaces that create safe, energizing, thriving. That's I mean, just like the feeling of love. So I always like say, in 10 years, there's so much love in the school system, and there's no homelessness, and affordable housing is not a thing anymore because we all can afford to live. So I've got a rosy picture of the next 10 years of the community, and it's a diverse, splendid place.
That's dope. That's dope. So, again, I'm happy that I could bring you two together. Who knows what happens from here? But before we go, I have gifts for you both. So, this is my Bridge Builder motivational journal. 52 weeks of motivational quotes.
Oh, okay.
And yes, it's an autographed copy for you. But they're quotes as well as reflection items and action items for those who desire to embark on the work of bridge building, because I believe in a lot of ways implicit bias is something we don't choose. It's something we're conditioned with. We don't even understand what we're walking away with, but those things divide us and create those chasms. So my hope is maybe if we do deeper looking inside when it comes to who we are, how we show up, as well as opening our eyes to the realities that exist around us, maybe we can be a little bit more impactful in how we do choose to lead in whatever facet that is. So
where do you see this journey for you going?
Journey for me. So I would say the heart and the why for me here is, and I try to sum it up here, I have a lot of friends of difference that I've acquired since being here in Charlotte. And specifically, I'll focus on the white men who lead in the corporate space, as well as white women who lead in the nonprofit space. And when a Keith Lamont Scott happens, when a George Floyd happens, I get phone calls. And I appreciate it, want to check on me and my being. But also there seems to be a recurring emphasis on, I want to say something, I don't want to say the wrong thing. I want to do something, I don't want to do the wrong thing. And for me, it was just such an insanity loop that I felt I had the opportunity as well as the responsibility to do what I could to equip, or as I put it, help them develop the bridge building muscles themselves, to be able to build relationships across difference. And when you build that, when you have that growth in trust, that growth in honesty, that growth in just care for one another, it becomes less of a checking of a box of, oh, did I, give to this nonprofit, or did I have a Black or brown person to represent the diversity of our cities? Like, no, I want these people here. I want them, whoever they are, to be present because they bring value to not only me, but man, if the broader community only knew what might be. So that is my why, and having conversations with individuals like you two, it's like, man, giving opportunity for others to be a fly on the wall if they don't, and hopefully that moves them to engage in a different way with others around them. So,
well, thanks for having me here.
Absolutely.
I really enjoyed it, and I am glad we built this bridge, at least to start.
For sure.
So.
Let's keep the bridge going. So don't wait until a Keith Lamont Scott or call me anytime, send me a text message. Let's, keep the conversation going. If you need me, I'm here.
And the flip side of that, to round it out, was very much understanding that my fellow Black and brown leaders who exist in those same spaces were tired and exhausted and withdrawn from even wanting to be a part of any bridge building, and which is very much understood. You're tired. But I will say that, again, it takes us all bringing our full selves together to actualize a lot of things you say. Is like, one party can't opt out for this to exist. So yeah, that very much was
yeah, but you're kind of saying, don't wait for a crisis. Like, just
absolutely
have these conversations.
Absolutely.
Because we're humans.
Yeah.
So.
Absolutely. So yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. I appreciate y'all.
You too.
Thank you.
Thanks.